give you one very simple, practical idea to get you. Prayer is central to my life. I don't know where I'd be if I didn't pray. And what I'm going to do in today's video is give you one very simple, practical idea to help you start praying. And this is going to work if you're new to prayer, if you're not kind of religious or anything like that, or if you're somebody who prays but it's gone a bit dry, a bit stale, then this idea is just going to help kickstart your prayer life. And it's so simple, so practical that anyone can use it. It's going to be great for you. Welcome to my channel. My name is Derek and I've been helping people grow and develop their faith for the last 3 decades. And in this channel, I just give tools and techniques that help you live a deeper, more meaningful life. So I read some research recently that over half of young adults in the UK, where I'm from, pray, even though a tiny proportion actually go to church. And even though people have maybe fallen out of love of going to church, they actually are still deeply spiritual and want to know how to pray and want to know how to connect to God. But when I'm working with people and coaching, and when I've ran groups to help people pray, I realize people get stuck and they have ideas in their head that really holds them back. You know, people get concerned about getting it right, or feeling not like worthy to pray, or their identity holds them back because they're like, well, I'm not like a religious person, so this is really not for me, even though I know that life is about something more. Well, there's one idea in something Jesus said that just gives us real clarity and confidence if you want to start praying. And it comes from a time where Jesus got asked a question by his close friends. And they'd seen lots of his life, and they'd seen him do all these crazy miracles. They'd seen him walk on water. They'd seen him calm a storm. They'd see him bring someone from dead, or they'd see someone who, like, for decades were ill and he'd healed them. And so they saw all these miracles, but they didn't ask how to do miracles. And they've seen his powerful teaching, where he'd have this authority and he'd hold people spellbound, and he'd have thousands that would gather, and it'd be so insightful, his teaching, that even today we still talk about it. But his disciples never asked to learn how to teach like Jesus did. In fact, those that were around Jesus only ever asked him to teach them one thing. And you can find it in Luke chapter 11, verse 1. And you find this that says, like, when Jesus had finished praying, his disciples, his followers, came to him and they said, Lord, Master, will you teach us how to pray? They didn't ask to do the miracle stuff or to hold people spellbound with their teaching. There was something about observing the way that he prayed that made them think, actually, that's what we want. And we'll never really know exactly what it was, but there was something about it. And Jesus agreed, and he said, okay, I'll teach you how to pray. And he said, this is what you need to do. And this is amazing, Jesus, who's going to teach them to pray. And he says, this is how you do it. This is how you start praying. Father. That was what he said. He said lots of other things, but that was the first thing he said. If you want to know how to pray, this is how you pray. You pray, Father. Now, I understand the idea of fatherhood doesn't work for everyone, depending on your upbringing. For some of us, that's a very painful or loaded language. But even if you've had a real terrible experience, you've got a sense of what it's supposed to be like. And when Jesus says this is how you pray, he's kind of trying to get into our heads and our hearts 3 things about prayer that if we can grasp them, they just liberate us and give us confidence and clarity on the whole praying thing, and can just set you free. And if you can get this, then you're going to be well on your way. And 3 things. The first thing that it tells us is that prayer is like a relationship, Father, not like a religious activity, not a religious ritual. It's not for some people, for the religious people. It's a human thing. I remember reading this story, and there's this dad, and he's busy working in his office. He works from home, and he's busy working away, and suddenly he realizes his little boy is just slipped inside the door, and he's just standing at the door, and he looks at him. And he's like, yes, what is it, son? And he's like, nothing. He's like, what, have you fought with your sister? Have you fought with her again? Do I need to come and sort it out? And he's like, no, Dad. He's like, right, what is it? Why are you standing there? Are you hungry? Do you need to come and sort food out? And he's like, no, Dad. And by now his father's really wanting to get around to work, starting to get a bit agitated, irritated. He says, well, what is it? What are you standing there? And the little boy just looks at his dad and says, I just want to be with you, Dad. And you can imagine that just melting his heart, that for the little boy, it was about relationship. And when Jesus is teaching us to pray, the way he teaches us to pray is his Father. He wants us to know that's how you start praying, that it's about a relationship, and it's actually a Father whose heart's melted when we come to him and utter those words, that we are always welcome, that it's a relationship. And the second thing that it helps us clarify in our minds is that the prayer is not a performance. So often when I'm working with people and helping people, and people we talk about, I'm not very good at prayer, or how do I do prayer? How do I get it right? As if it's something that you do, and you should not evaluate it. It's a relationship. I mean, if you had a friend round, you invited a friend round, or a friend invited you round, and you're together and you're eating food or playing a game or watching a movie, and every 5 seconds they were like, is this all right? Am I doing it right? Is this all right for you? You'd just be like, well, you just relax and just be. You'd have to perform. You'd have to evaluate whether you do it right. A relationship doesn't work like that. You're just together. You just spend time together. Now, that doesn't mean we don't improve the relationship and work out what we might be doing or wrong, and that happens in all relationships. If we talk too much, or we don't listen, or we offend the other person, or we ignore the other person, or we don't spend time with them, definitely we want to improve it because we love that person. We want to connect with them more. We want a better relationship, but it's not a performance. It's not something we evaluate quite in that way. And so Jesus said, if you want to start praying, this is how you start praying. You say, Father. And it tells us that it's like a relationship, not a religious thing, that it's not a performance. And the other thing that it says is that if it's a relationship and it's not a performance, that you're to bring yourself. And when I first became a follower of Jesus, and I didn't quite know what to do or how to do it, and I like reading, so I went and bought a book, and it was this book about prayer, and each chapter was about different ways of praying and loads of stuff about prayer. And it got heavier and heavier as I went through, and I felt more of a failure. And I was like, I think I've got this whole thing wrong. I can't do any of this stuff. This is for super saints. This is for advanced people. This is just not me. And I got through it to the last chapter, which should have been the first chapter. And this was the title of the last chapter. And 3 decades later, I still remember it. This is what it said. It says, pray as you can, not as you can't. Pray as you can, not as you can't. I mean, the way you are, bring that. So if you're a painter, then paint your prayers. If you're a writer, write it. If you like praying when you're walking, if you're someone who likes to chatter a lot, if you're someone who likes to sit in silence, if you're someone who likes ancient words and poetry and to read that to God, then do that. If you're very disciplined and you do the same time every day, then do that. But pray as you can, not as you can't. Bring your personality. And the problem is when you hear someone else talking about prayer, they talk about how they do it, and it can make you think that that's how you're supposed to do it, and you need to fit into their box. But it's a relationship, just as you hear about people's parenting or friendships or marriages, and you hear how they do it, and you think, well, that bit might work for us, but not that, because we're different in various ways. That learn from others, but bring know the sort of person you are, what you like to do, how you express yourself, and just bring that, because that's a relationship. And when God looks at you and thinks about prayer, he wants you to bring you. He doesn't want you to pretend to somebody else, or to bring their gifts or their personality or their style. He made you the way that you are, and he wants you to bring that. So how do you pray? You just say, Father, and you just say whatever comes to mind. If you want to write that, or if you want to speak it out, if you want to download a prayer that you want to read, just do whatever works for you. It's not a performance, it's a relationship. And doing that and just getting started can bring a huge sense of liberation. And God's so excited because he loves you and he wants to welcome you. And another part of prayer that's really important is the Bible. And if you're not really sure how to connect with the Bible, then watch this video here next, because that's going to give you loads of helpful tools in how to pray and how to read the Bible alongside it. And one of the things that blocks us in our prayer life is our identity and the labels we give ourselves and who we are. And if you want freedom in that, then watch this video next, because that one's really going to help you get your identity sorted. Anyway, thanks for watching, and see you next time.